I am Samantha Tiara, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Chats. Today we have a really special guest today, and we also have a really special episode. I've been waiting and very excited to interview our guest today. We have the multi-dimensional activist, educator, and spoken word artist. I would like to welcome to our show none other than Miss Mariah Ivey. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. The pleasure is definitely ours and our viewers. So today we're going to touch on a few different topics that are very relevant to our communities and things that, surround your work and just the life in general. So let's just kind of kick this off. So for starters, I oftentimes hear and I see the hashtag stay woke. Mm-hmm. Now, what does that mean to you, and how can one become authentically woke?
Right. Well, to stay woke, to be conscious, to be aware, to be cognizant of what's happening around you, what's happening within the fine prints of the system, right? And how it affects you and those who look like you and those who are around you and those who live in the same neighborhood you live and attend the same schools and are in the educational systems that you're in. So stay woke at all times, to me, simply means that, right?
Stay woke at all times.
Stay aware. Right.
Okay, awesome. Now let's kind of talk a little bit about the Black liberation theology. Mm-hmm. Now that is a movement that seeks to kind of free us from oppression and poverty. In your opinion, are we as minorities still being oppressed systematically, institutionally, and also in your opinion, by whom are we oppressed by?
Absolutely. We are definitely still living within oppression, and as long as, just being honest, as long as the system is still relevant and in place, there will always be an oppressor and a group of people who are being oppressed. There will always be marginalized individuals and or groups. So obviously we're being oppressed by, if you're a person of color, if you are LGBTQIA, if you have certain religious beliefs, spiritual practices, whatever the case may be, right? You are living within a system that you don't benefit from, that is not designed to serve and protect you, and doesn't have your best interest at heart. So when you say by who, we haven't seen the faces, or we have seen the faces, mm-hmm. right? But that's the beauty of a system where they can be uniformed, right, and they can be our teachers, and they can be regular individuals in society, and yet be the oppressor. Right. So absolutely, we are still living in that. We are still fighting that every day. Liberation is an ongoing thing. So our ancestors and the people before us, they were fighting, we're still fighting, right? It may be a little bit different, but we're still fighting.
Okay, you brought up something really, really good that I want to actually mention. You talk about oppression, and we're fighting, our generation is fighting. In your opinion, how do you think our generation is fighting that oppression and things that we're doing to try to move forward?
I think our generation is fighting in a plethora of different ways. Some of them are doing some of the same things that people did before us, which to an extent is almost a genius, right? Because if you believe in Sankofa, right, we don't know where we're going unless we know where we've been. We have to study movements. We have to know what they did, where they failed, right, where they were successful, in order to implement those same ideas into our movements now. So we have individuals who are fighting the same way, who are doing that studying, that research, right, in order to perfect their level of activism now. But we also have a generation of young people and youth who are, as I've stated before, kind of like Facebook activists, social media activists, right? Where we share things and we may bring awareness to our followers, right? But we're not actually showing up, and we're not actually physically being present. So I would say a combination of those things. Mm-hmm. It's kind of how our generation is fighting.
Awesome, really good points. Another thing I kind of want to mention on this topic, in your opinion, how do we as a people overcome and heal from the ongoing oppression?
Man, for starters, we have to remember the significance and the importance of a village, right? And of family.
Yes.
And of people who keep us sane. We have to also keep intact our spiritual practices and the things that bring us peace, because it gets hard doing this work. It gets tough. You are weighed down sometimes. You are emotionally affected by it. And it's not something that you can just go to sleep, wake up, and don't feel the same thing. I went to sleep as a Black woman. I'm waking up as a Black woman. And when I walk out of those doors, I will be treated as a Black woman, whatever that entails, right? So it does get heavy. I think we have to learn how to take care of ourselves, how to self-care, and that is to go back to our families in the circles where we feel that we can be our authentic selves, where we can laugh, right? Where we can talk, where we can meditate and pray in those safe spaces where we can be ourselves, right? We have to maintain those things in order to find healing and in order to better prepare ourselves to continue to fight.
Awesome. And I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I had a conversation with a couple a few weeks ago who literally mentioned sort of the same thing you said, that, you know, it takes that village, you know, it takes healed people to heal people.
Absolutely.
You know, so very, very good. Another question, as minorities, many face multiple levels of discrimination that are compounded by just race, gender, class, and even, you know, orientation. The term intersectionally has been used to describe the overlapping minority status. So again, someone can be a woman, Black, poor, gay, and subjected to, you know, sexism, racism, classism, homophobia, the list goes on. What do you think would be the keys to advocating for such groups? And I know this is kind of a heavy question, but I'm really just kind of interested to know, you know, again, what do you believe is the keys to helping those particular groups fight and to advocate for, you know, the freedom and equality?
I would say to understand your position as an ally in certain situations if this is not your struggle, right? So I have a few friends, some of my closest friends, who are Black queer women of color, right? Black queer women. So that is defined as being intersectional, right? Because she is Black, she is queer, and she is a woman all at the same time, and has to navigate society as all three of those things. As an ally to that, right? I am not a queer woman, so I am an ally to that struggle. So the best that I can do is continue to affirm and support and show up in spaces where I'm not centering myself, where I am not talking, but I am here standing in solidarity with you. So I would say for any individual, because even as Black women, right?
Yeah.
That is right. So I would say in any situation, we need more and better allyship of people truly and continuously supporting and affirming our being, our presence, and our rights. Yeah,
absolutely. And essentially it takes that support from that one person who has that voice, you know. It essentially just don't be quiet. So just don't be quiet. So a very, very good point. You know, as a Black woman, what do you think needs to change systematically and ideologically so that minority men and women can prosper in this country?
Well, we live in a capitalistic society, country. So in order for things to really change, there has to be a shift in political power. There has to be a shift in accessibility to resources, because essentially that's where we lack, right? We lack the access to resources. It's not like money is not out there. It's not like opportunity is out there, but who is it out there for? Who is it available to? So in order for us to truly, you know, make a shift, in order for us to truly make a change, there has to be a shift in political power. And that all goes back into revolution and what we are fighting for every single day. So.
Absolutely. Minorities are generally perceived to fit different stereotypes that were created by our oppressors, unfortunately. You know, we've had labels such as being freeloading, lazy, thugs, criminals, you know, you've heard it all. In the James Baldwin film, I Am Not Your Negro, he basically asks, what is it that makes them need us to be these stereotypes to feel superior? Why do you think we can't break free from these different, racial fallacies?
I would say it's hard to break free from them because they are so embedded within the vocabulary of our oppressors, to the point where it's almost in the vocabulary of those being oppressed, So I think for us personally, in order to overcome those things and to break free of them, we have to change our internal voice. We have to change our internal language and the things that we define ourselves as and the ways that we look at ourselves. Because if we don't, then we'll always be impacted by what society puts on us, what labels they put on us, what they say we are good for or not good for. And we will always be looked at as property, entertainment, things that can be bought, sold, and traded, right? And until that will always be, as long as we're living in a system. So truly as individuals, we have to begin to change our internal language.
Right. Good point. I want to kind of shift a little bit, and I want to have the discussion about hair. As a Black woman, when it comes to the topic of hair, there's so many wonderful things that we can do with our hair. We have dreads, braids, we can straighten our hair, things of that nature. And it seems to be that whenever, others, tend to kind of do something, it seems to, it's okay. But it's like when we do it, or if we are to, show our dreads or our braids or, things of that nature, we're kind of looked at a little bit differently. In your opinion, why do you think that is? And what can we do as a society for others to kind of just say, hey, we're just embracing our natural beauty?
So the interesting part about Black hair is that everybody loves Black culture,
yes,
but they don't love Black people.
Yes.
Right? So this whole culturally appropriating, Black hairstyles, I have dreadlocks myself. I don't believe that locks are for white hair, and that's me, right? But I think for us as women, and embracing our natural beauty, I think we have to just find that confidence in it, right? And be okay with being our authentic selves, regardless of, right? If you want to wear your hair in an afro, kinky, curly, nappy, locked up, you don't want to retwist it. Retwisting your hair is an Americanized thing. If you don't want to retwist your hair, don't retwist it, right? Now, we know what comes with that. We know what people might say, but I would say wherever you feel most comfortable in yourself, to do that, right? It's like putting on clothes in the morning. Sometimes my outfits don't match, but it's okay.
Right, that's okay.
Because that's what that's what I feel. And so really when it comes down to it, with clothes, it's not about what you're wearing, it's about how you wear it.
Right.
So when you're not
and the
matching,
personality,
right. So sometimes you're not matching, someone's like, yo, that's a dope fit, right? But
like,
if I walked in here with no confidence at all,
right.
you'd be like, what does she have on, right? It's the same thing. I feel most comfortable when I am myself, when I wake up and say, I'm gonna do this because this is what I want to do, and not what other people would like me to do or how they would like to see me, right? So I say we just need to become way more confident and comfortable in being whoever it is we want to be. And if you don't want to rock natural hair and all of that, and you want to get a perm and you want to get a weave, like as women, we should police our own bodies. We govern our own bodies. So no one should be able to tell you that this is the definition of beauty. This is the definition of. You do what you want to do with your body, with your hair. Wherever you find your confidence, wherever you find your home in yourself, do it.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. And unfortunately, with the media, they have made it so to where you have to look a certain way or you have to have a certain hairstyle. And honestly, like you said, just do you, basically.
Yeah.
Just do you. Okay, so I want to shift gears one more time. I want to talk about politics a little bit.
Okay.
Now, we know the current administration that we have, and it seems to be that once again, our country has really shown its true colors once again, which is by being openly racist and also openly sexist as well. In your opinion, what do you think are tactics and solutions to resisting a very obviously biased administration that we're currently going through?
Resisting oppression looks like a lot of different things. So I think in a very simple kind of way of thinking, we have to figure out what it looks like to resist oppression. That has to become a conversation. Because at the end of the day, we live in a capitalistic country, right? So I encourage those individuals and I appreciate those individuals who are saying vote, vote, vote. But I also understand those individuals who are saying why and for what. I get it, I get it. So at the end of the day, because we don't have control over who's in the office and what this administration looks like, we literally have to go back to community. The power is in the community. So we have to operate as a collective. We have to move as one body. We have to have the same talking points, and we have to understand what it means to resist oppression. Absolutely.
And as a culture, how can we gain more positions of power?
We have to put ourselves, number one, in positions of power, right? So I think a common example is when you get involved in politics locally, right? And you go to these city, county council meetings, you don't see a lot of people of color there at the meetings, right? So when we're talking about getting involved on a political level, as minorities getting involved on a political level, we have to show up. And we have to support those individuals who look like us, who are trying to achieve those positions.
Absolutely. Now let's talk a little bit about education really quickly. As an educator, talk about some of the issues that your students have and what you do to help them overcome those issues.
Well, my students come from many different kinds of households. So I work at a school that's on Post Road, which is the east side of Indianapolis. And as a person who grew up out west, I was never out east. So I heard a lot about the east side, and I'm not saying the west side is the best. I mean, it's kind of the best. But
well, as a person that grew up on the east side of Indianapolis, I'm just kidding.
But with that said, the east side felt like a completely different world to me growing up, right? And the only time I was on the east side was when I was going to an event, or which was rare because there's not a lot of artistic events on the east side, or a lot of programming in general, or if I was going to like a family member's house, and even then straight shot back to the highway, right? So that was kind of it. So working out there now and experiencing the lives of my students, they all live in close proximity of the school, walking distance of the school, right? So when I talk about anything that's out west, anything downtown, anything up north, they don't know what it is. They've never been, right? A lot of them struggle with transportation. A lot of them come from, crazy home situations where maybe there's not a father in the home, maybe there's not a mother in the home, or if there is a parent, maybe they're dealing with their own set of issues and can't really be an active participant in their child's life, right? There's a bunch of different situations. But me as an educator and as an artist, but as a part of their village, I recognize that I have to be a part of helping them to grow. Right? So a lot of times as educators, we put the sole responsibility on their parents, and we say, well, it starts at home, and that's a situation that their parents should handle. That's an issue but really, truly, I look at us as a village, and I'm a part of your village. So what you're not getting at home, I may not be able to provide everything, but I have this amount of time to impart as much on you as I can. Right? So I'm going to love on you while you're here. And we're going to talk about real issues. And we're not just going to deal with the academic part of things, because I need you to prepare to live a holistic, full life beyond high school, right? Maybe you want to be an entrepreneur. Maybe you want to, who knows? But I'm here to help you live out your dreams. So they do come with a lot of different problems, outside. And a lot of that has nothing to do with them. right? You might live in an impoverished neighborhood, a low income neighborhood. That's not their fault, right? But I understand why they may act out because of it. I understand that you can't focus on your math problems when you're trying to figure out what you're going to eat at night.
Right.
I get it, right? So when you're in my presence, it's just my responsibility to love on them as much as I can.
That is so powerful. And you know what? My hat goes off to you, you know, as educator, as someone who is, you know, trying to make that difference. So my hat completely goes off to you.
Thank you.
And you know what? There is so many more things I wish we could just sit here and talk with you about. Yeah. You know, we could have hours of conversation, and I promise you. Well, one thing before we kind of leave off, how can one, you know, get in contact with you if they want to know more about you, the movements that you're involved in, and just how to, you know, just interact with you?
Yeah, so I'm on all social networks at I am Mariah Ivey on Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff, mariahivey.com. You can find out more about the artistry, the poetry, the movements, the shows, all of that good stuff. Yeah.
And so with that being said, thank you so much. And I want to just leave off and just say, make sure you stay woke, as she mentioned, so stay woke. So again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
CHATS TV, we had a very wonderful exclusive, the lovely Mariah Ivey. So stay tuned. Hey, we're going to take a really short break, but we will be right back.
Hi, this is Darren Dewitt Henson, and you're checking me out on CHATS. Stay tuned because there's a whole lot more.
Hi, I'm Samantha Tiara, and welcome back. We again are here live with Miss Mariah Ivey. So, you know, when we last left off, we talked a little bit about you as an educator. Now, I want to kind of talk a little bit about, speaking of education, the school to prison pipeline. Do you feel that minority children are disproportionately targeted for, you know, suspension or even criminalizations when non-minority students receiving counseling or non-punishment? How can we help minority students out?
Minority students absolutely are disproportionately criminalized. School to prison pipeline is based off of third grade test scores, you know. So we're building bigger prisons and we're putting more beds in the prisons based upon those test scores. And then sometimes you have to ask yourself about testing, right? You know, who these tests were even created for.
Right.
And that, you know, matriculates into standardized testing when you get to high school and those AP and honors courses and who they were designed for. So I do feel like it all interconnects. But I think in order for us to kind of, I guess, move past it or at least bring a sense of change to the system, we have to continue to shed light on these issues, especially if you work in education, especially if you are sitting in these boardrooms and you're in the conversation of education and you're having these conversations with the different laws that are changing within education. Like now we have ESSA, which stands for Every Student Succeeds Act, and that takes the place of No Child Left Behind. So right now we're figuring out how ESSA is going to affect Indianapolis schools, right? And the ins and outs of that. So it has to continue to be a conversation. We have to continue to shed light on the issues and point it out, right? So if you are a teacher who is a person of color and you work with students who are majority people of color, right? And the majority of the educators are not, then as my job, I have to continue to put that in the conversation. I have to continue to bring up these issues because if I'm not advocating for my students and myself, then who else will?
Right,
so.
Right. Absolutely. Now, as an activist, you deal with a lot of heavy issues. A lot of heavy issues. How do you kind of keep yourself up? How do you keep it positive and not, you know, get down yourself about it publicly?
Man, I would be lying if I said it doesn't get hard, right? Because as I said before, this work is not easy. But in order to stay positive, I don't know, man, like I meditate a lot, I pray a lot. I continue to stay hopeful. I have a very specific internal language where I'm constantly affirming myself, right? I believe in affirmation. So I am that person who will look in the mirror and say what I need to say, who will leave myself notes. So in order to stay positive and stay upbeat and continue to, love on other people when it gets hard, is literally to seek the source, right? And in my spiritual life plays a huge part in who I am as an individual. So as I said before, if I'm not pouring into myself, if I don't take that time for myself, I'm no good for anybody else, and I'm no good for this work, so I have to take personal space, sometimes. Right. I have to plug in and recharge,
Right, powerful. And you mentioned something about, affirmations and you having to do that. I think that is really, really a good thing. I think that if more people were to do that, I think that there would be a lot more confident people. So I'm all for that. Now, you are also an artist. What do you do to express your, artistry? Like, what do you do? And also, how much of a release is that for you?
As a poet, as a MC, as a spoken word artist, there's nothing more liberating for me than being on stage. Nothing more liberating. I actually, and it's weird because I'm kind of like an extroverted, introverted person, right? So,
oh really?
So I'm really an introvert, right? I'm really an introvert, and for people who know me as a performer, as an artist on stage, they're like, no, couldn't be, right? A lot of times it's easier for me to perform for thousands of people than it is sometimes to talk to like one person, right? And it's just those introverted tendencies, but there's no other liberating place for me more than being on stage. I would consider my art to be very transparent, very authentic. I believe in healing with the community. So I put those struggles, I put those realities in the work, right? And Maya Angelou kind of said it, that as we are healing as artists, right? As we are healing our communities, we are healing ourselves, right? As we are healing our audiences, we are healing ourselves. So as much as it, as great as it may be for the audience to, be inspired, be motivated, whatever they're getting from this performance is healing to the artist to be able to talk about it, right? And we have all these listening ears, and it's a release to actually put it out there, because we may have written it and have never shared it with anybody else, right? We may have experienced it, and the only place we put it is in this poem, right? So when you do that show, that gives you an opportunity to put it out there, to heal with the community, to be transparent, right? Art makes it okay. Art is an emotional process, and it makes it okay to feel. It makes it okay to experience, to struggle, to cry, to joy, right? And once we say it's okay, then there's other people in the audience who are now liberating themselves and saying, oh, I go through that too, right? But it takes that person saying it first, right? It takes that person opening up the door first, and somebody else being able to say, I go through the same stuff. I just needed somebody else to validate me, or I needed somebody else to make it okay, right? So for me, it's such a release. It's such a release. If I go too long without doing a show, or without performing or putting this work out in the atmosphere, I feel off. So yeah.
And and to hear you talk about your work through artistry, whether it's through poetry, spoken word, I see your face light up. I absolutely see your face light up. So it's almost like that's home for you. So
yeah, definitely.
Yes, absolutely. Now, recently, you had the opportunity to open up for the founder of Black Girls Rock, Beverly Bond.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that experience and how was that?
Yeah, it's really crazy because about a year ago, I watched the show Black Girls Rock. I don't remember how many years it's been, but I watched the show and I was super inspired after it. And I remember making a Facebook status yo, I gotta be on this show one day, or I at least have to shake the hands with the creator of it. So it was crazy for it to come full circle. And Stewart Speakers brought her here. And in that was a conversation. They asked me to, open up her reception, which was such an honor. She's a down-to-earth, woman, and I really respect her vision and acting on her vision, right? Because she's a DJ, and this Black Girls Rock thing just started as an idea and began to become bigger and bigger. So I really respect her passion and her ability to act on the things that she had only imagined once before. So it was a great experience. It was a lot of love. It was nothing more special than being in a room full of other melanated brothers and sisters who are unapologetically proud of their Blackness. So it felt great.
Awesome. Now, you were also recently honored along with other notable women at the QB Lit Ball. Now, what does an honor like that mean to you as a woman?
Man, I was honored for my work in the community, and the person who put it on, her name is January York. She's a poet, and she made an editorial spread of all the women being honored. And on my page, she put the revolutionary, right? And she wrote this whole, thing about it. And it was heavy because sometimes I look at and we're our own worst critic, but sometimes I look at that and I say, have I even done anything really to be honored, right? Have I even really, done anything, do I deserve this at this time? And it was a beautiful honor, and it's beautiful to be looked at, and to be recognized for the work that is being done, and to know that it doesn't go in vain, that people, are watching, that people are following, that it is inspiring somebody to act and to move and to get involved. But it felt good. I still feel like I have a lot of work to do. I still feel like there's so much more to accomplish, but I'm appreciative.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of, you kind of dove into my next question, that you feel like you have a lot more to do. There are also a lot of other, creative women out there who was a part of that ball as well. Mm-hmm. In your own personal opinion, what do you admire most about other creative women who are similar to you, or who is on the path to, wanting to be like you?
I admire, especially about Black women, because I love us and we're dope.
Yes, absolutely.
But I admire those individuals who have a vision, who are passionate about something, and who act on it. It takes an incredible amount of bravery and risk to act on a vision, to act on a dream, right? To say, I really want to create this, and then to go create it. Mm-hmm. It takes a lot. It takes your own resources. It takes your emotional, financial, mental investment. It takes all of that. Sometimes we sacrifice relationships with people in order to put our all into what it is we're doing. It's almost like being an artist, right? When you're committed to the work, sometimes you end up neglecting a few other things, right, in order to get it done. So what I admire about creative women is just that they have ideas, they go out there and they make it happen, and that's dope.
Absolutely, that is. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Wordplay and that piece. Mm-hmm. How did both come about?
Man, I'm excited just talking about this. That piece, open mic, came about in July of 2015. So I was living in DC prior to that. I moved to DC to go on an East Coast tour with 3 other artists. And I loved DC. I loved the DMV area. I loved their art scene and the commitment to poetry, the commitment to the genre, and how people would come out for it and pack spaces, for it. And when you come from the Midwest, specifically Indianapolis, you know how hard it is sometimes to get people to pay to come out to artistic events. And when I was in DC, it was like, they didn't care how much the ticket was, they were coming out to support. Now my city has gotten extremely better. Indianapolis has gotten better, because when you increase the quality of the art and the quality of the shows, and you don't kind of budge on that price, right, and they come out and they're like, yo, I got my money's worth and more, right? So they've gotten better. But I love this scene, but I also felt obligated to come back and help the art scene in my own city. I felt like I could be doing all the things that I'm doing out there, out here, and it would impact me just a little bit more, because I feel like a lot of artists do this thing here where we get an opportunity and we leave and we never come back. So we don't really spend enough time to cultivate and build a sustainable art scene here in Indy, where it's respected, where we have great hosts and we have great shows, and you know, and it's ongoing. We kind of have the same people doing the same thing, and not a lot of passing off of the baton. So I felt obligated to come back and do just that. So I didn't know what it would look like, but I started planning it before I got back here. So I moved back to Indy in May of 2015, and I launched that piece, Open Mic, in July of 2015. And it started off as an open mic that was happening every first and third Thursday of the month. Now it only happens once a month, because that just works a little bit better for us. But that's how it started. So it's literally a space where all art forms are appreciated and accepted, whether you rap, whether you do poetry, whether you know, are a storyteller, comedian, whether you are neo soul unconscious, or you trap, like whatever it is that you do, like it's appreciated in this space. And we've literally just seen the numbers grow and grow, and it's almost like a safe haven for, especially for the Black community in Indy, to come out here and feel like family, to get up there and perform, or to just sit back and support and just love the vibes. That piece, Open Mic, literally is that. It's peaceful. It's organic, you know.
That is so dope. Let me just say that is absolutely dope.
Right on.
Absolutely dope.
All right, wordplay. So I had this vision to put together a show that highlighted the female MCs in the city, right? Because as an MC myself, a lot of times we are overlooked, of course, because we are in a male-dominated genre. But on top of that, not only do we get overlooked, but when the conversation comes up, we are always labeled as female MCs and not just MCs, right? So I had this vision to put on this show, which was a collective of MCs, poets, it was vocalists, visual artists, it was all of the above, and it was all women, right? So we put on this show down at the Arts Garden, which was like, yo, if you put on a show down at the Arts Garden and it fails, like you're gonna be looking silly. But we pulled it off. It was great. It was the first time that anything like that had been at the Arts Garden, which is in the heart of Indianapolis. You've never seen a hip hop event happen down there at night, right? So we literally had a private event. We had 4 different visual artists all painting at the same time. We had a live band, and then it was about 5 MCs, if I can remember, 5 MCs, a few poets, background singers, and the house was full of people. Right? Throughout the night, like people was breaking out with the electric slide, and you know, it literally felt like a reunion, and it was something great for the city in terms of hip hop and in terms of community. So now we're making that an annual thing, so we will be doing wordplay again.
Wow. That's dope.
Right.
That is dope. Again, that is dope. So all of it's just dope. Now, Miss Mariah, what inspires you creatively?
I'm inspired by so much. Number one, I'm inspired by other writers, not just performers, but writers. I'm inspired by writers. I'm inspired by people and situations and realities, unspoken or spoken. I'm literally just inspired by the world around me, and being able to turn that into something tangible, something worth listening to.
Awesome. How do you also find balance?
Man. A word in a sentence that I had to get real comfortable with, especially this year, but 2016 taught me a lot. No, right? Yeah. Period at the end. Which is so much easier said than done for me, because I try to be there for everybody, right? And I try to help out where I can and do what I can, but I do know that I have to say no to certain things in order for me to rest. And like I said, plug in and recharge, right? So In order to find balance, number one, if it's not in the calendar,
Right.
so gotta have a schedule. If it's not in the calendar, I completely forget. So making sure I'm on top of that, and literally making sure I have time for myself. So I'm teaching, I'm performing, I'm putting on shows, I'm organizing, I'm working in the community, I'm traveling. I have to find time for myself, and all of that to go link up with my homies and laugh, and have a good time, and then get back to the work. So
Right. That's really important. What is the biggest lesson you've learned from life, and also, from a mentor?
man, that's a big question. Biggest lesson I've learned in life, that there is liberation in speaking your truth. That has to be one of the biggest lessons I've learned. I haven't always been a person who was okay and comfortable in my truth, whatever that truth was at the time, right? And as an artist, I think when I first started, I was like doing this art thing, and I was putting work out there, and I was talking about things that I felt everybody wanted me to talk about. I wasn't talking about my truth. I wasn't completely transparent in that. But once I became comfortable in that truth, and I put it out there, not just for the sake of putting it out there, but for the sake of liberating someone else, I found complete liberation in myself. And so there's not much that, angers me or worries me or bothers me. There's not much that anybody can use against me or hold me hostage to, because it's out there, right? Because I'm comfortable in my truth. And not to say I have anything negative in my truth, but I'm transparent, in the things that I've gone through, and I put it out there. So I say one of the biggest lessons, be transparent in your truth, because there's liberation in that. There's healing in that.
Absolutely.
Right? And if you can't, if you can't be, then you'll constantly kind of be trying to, you'll be trying to find freedom within the confines of, closed spaces, right? You'll never feel 100% okay to be yourself in public if you're not okay with that truth.
Absolutely.
So that has to be one of the biggest lessons. From a mentor, does it have to be like man, because I don't know, I'm so like thirsty for knowledge, and I'm constantly soaking up so much from so many different people. But I'll say something that I took from Audre Lorde that I've kind of quote that I've kind of embodied, is that poetry is not a luxury, it is an obligation, right? So I have this gift, God gave me this gift, and I have to use it, because somebody's freedom depends on it.
Absolutely.
Somebody's happiness depends on it.
I like that. I like that. And to kind of piggyback off of what you said is, you never know, to someone that you may convey your message to, you never know what they may be going through.
Absolutely.
And so words that you can speak, whether directly to them or indirectly, people are always listening. So
absolutely,
that is very, very powerful. So thank you for that. Thank you.
Gratitude.
Now, lastly, through your voice, you do a lot, again, from the, the poetry, the art, the teaching. At the end of the day, what do you hope to achieve for those in your community, and how can people join you in these efforts as well?
I hope that we understand what freedom is. I hope we understand what we are willing to put at stake in order to achieve freedom. I hope we understand the importance of community, that there is no liberation where there is not community, that we understand that we need each other, that we need to get back to our villages and supporting and affirming each other. So I think in all of my work, in all of my efforts and initiatives, I hope that that's what people get, that they understand that liberation is tangible, that they can have it, that it's obtainable, right? And that they begin to embody that African principle of Ubuntu. I am because we are. When one does better, we all do better. When one lacks, we all lack, right? And we cannot peacefully sleep knowing that someone that looks like us is encountering a detrimental situation, right? We have to step in and help. We have to hold each other accountable, and we have to lift each other up. So,
oh man, powerful. You know what, again, as always, I mentioned this earlier, I can literally just sit here and talk to you guys. You have so much knowledge, so much.
You can join me in my efforts by, number one, getting involved in your communities. And if you are here in the Indianapolis community, getting involved in the work that we're doing. So organizations that I would encourage you to check out, Indy 10, they do Black Lives Matter work, and get involved with other organizations that are doing liberation work. In terms of artistry, show up to art events where we have a conceptual conversation, substanceful conversation, and contribute to it. So that piece is every third Thursday of the month at Fletcher Place Arts and Books. So make sure you come out to that and literally get involved, right? Get on the grounds and get involved.
Awesome. Now, last thing, again, I can sit here and just talk to you hours. I keep saying that. But how can one also get in contact with you through social media? And if they just simply want to reach out to you?
Yeah. So I'm on Instagram and Facebook at I am Mariah Ivey, and booking mariahivey@gmail.com. You can find out all that information via social media, upcoming shows and whatnot. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, again, thank you so much for taking time out for, just kind of giving us some, moments of your time. We really appreciate it. This has been another CHATS TV exclusive. I am Samantha Tierra, and again, we have the lovely Mariah Ivey with us. So, again, thank you.
Thank you.
And we will see you on the next episode.